Well, hello, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you very much for joining us here. We're coming to you live from our studios in Auckland Park, Johannesburg, for the Week in Review with myself, Liesl Wilson, where we take a look at some of the top stories to come out of the week. Of course, what's been making headlines and getting South Africans talking. Let's take a look at what we can expect for today. At our top story today, ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa is leading the party's Letsema campaign in Kimberley in the Northern Cape province, where the campaign is part of accelerating service delivery in the country's provinces. Kimberley has been plagued by issues of sewage spills, potholes, water cuts and dirty water, amongst many other issues. Ramaphosa is joined by ANC Provincial Chairperson Zamani Saul and National Executive Committee members. Let's take you live there.
Our communities and the branches that are truly going to serve the people of our country, and hence we've also pivoted it around doing actual work in the communities. Things such as cleaning up, getting ANC volunteers, activists and members of the community to be alive to what is happening in the community. If the community landscape needs sprucing up, cleaning up, they should be the ones who take leadership, and then local government will then follow in their wake. If there are issues such as criminality in the community, revive the community policing forums and be actively involved. If there's a school in the area, be involved in the life of the school through the governing bodies. Health facilities should also be looked into. So it is really getting the ANC to reconnect in full with the life of our people and make sure that those challenges that we have had, such as non-service delivery, corruption, are gotten rid of. And it is through this Letsema campaign, and Letsema in Sesotho means that we all work together. We work together for the good of the community. And we are essentially going back to our traditional roots and utilizing what has always worked in our communities within the ranks of the ANC. And I can say that it is paying good dividends. We're seeing the fruits of this because our branches are becoming revived. Because in the end, when branches of the ANC are strong, then government also becomes strong and becomes effective. And hence we conceptualized the Letsema campaign, and we're going to be doing this right through the year, this year, as well as next year and the following years as well.
Chairperson, what does this mean for the Northern Cape? As we all know that the Northern Cape is a small province in terms of population, but very vast in terms of land. What does this mean in terms of service delivery, in terms of the people of the Northern Cape getting the service that they deserve? I mean, everybody deserves great service in this country, but particularly the Northern Cape, as we are launching the Letsema campaign in the Northern Cape today.
No, thank you very much, Malik, and thanks to the listeners across the breadth and length of the Northern Cape. For us, Letsema is about recommitting ourselves to what we've promised the people of the Northern Cape. Number one, that we are going to work very closely with our communities in ensuring that we improve their quality of lives. And number two, we need to accelerate the pace of service delivery by both the provincial and the local government. So for us to achieve that, we need to invite communities to be part and parcel of that journey. That's what Letsema is all about, and I think the President has adequately alluded to that. It's about inviting people to be part and parcel of the journey of improving their quality of lives, both as an organization and as well as the governing party. So that's what it means, that we are inviting all the people of the Northern Cape that get actively involved in your communities around issues of development. We should not struggle to invite parents to be part and parcel of a school governing body. We should not struggle to invite communities to be part and parcel of the community police forums. It should be a natural instinct that we should be involved in fighting crime. With the bigger challenge that we are confronted with in the province and the increase in GBV and rape, you can have 100,000 police on the ground, you won't stop it up until communities stand up. Work closely with the police in order to address it. So with Letsema, we say everyone, we extend an invitation, come and work with the African National Congress, come and make your little contribution in the work of government to ensure that we address some of the major socio-economic challenges that are confronting our communities.
I'm hearing very positive things, but I'm seeing government. Why Letsema campaign under the banner of the African National Congress and not under the banner of government, Mr. President?
Well, the ANC, as I've said, needs itself to be renewed because it needs government in all the 8 provinces in our country, save for one province. So the repair, the rebuilding of the African National Congress is to the benefit of the government in the end. At government level, we have other programs. For instance, as we went through and navigated our way through COVID, we came up with the Economic Recovery and Reconstruction Plan. And when you look at that plan in itself, it also talks to a Letsema of a different type. It talks to government working no longer in silos, but working in an integrated way, right from the national government right to the local government. And that is why, as part of that process, we also adopted the district development model, which in essence is about integrated government working harmoniously and working to develop the lives of our people, particularly as we reconstruct and rebuild our economy. And already we're seeing a lot of benefits from that type of approach. The reforms that we've been introducing to make it much easier for our economy to grow better and faster, for job creation, reducing poverty and eliminating inequality, and by doing all those things, making it easy for businesses to operate so that they can create jobs. But also for government to strengthen itself in its own work of creating, for instance, public works. Just in the period just between when COVID started to now, we've created 1 million opportunities for people to work. And most of those have been young people. And most of them have been women. Women who carry the biggest burden of poverty and unemployment in our country. So through those initiatives, the ERRP, we are able to see a Letsema of a different sort where we work together. So at the ANC level, we are focusing on that basic unit of the African National Congress to be revived, to be strengthened, and to be rebuilt, because it is through that we're able to strengthen government as a whole.
Chairperson, the President talks about, growing the economy of the country, and obviously we need to grow the economy of the province. And we are in the midst of load shedding. At some point, I'm thinking that we might be in level 15 where there's no candles at ShopRite. But we have solar plants in the Northern Cape. Yeah. Are we using them? Are they on the grid? What is happening with those solar plants?
I think that's quite an important question, because we've got a beautiful sun in the province, and we also have got beautiful wind here in the Northern Cape. But if you look at the brief history of IPP investments in the country, 64% is in the Northern Cape. Over the past 6 years, we've got more than 70 billion rand investment in alternative and renewable energy. Massive investment in the Northern Cape. So we account for 4% of renewables in the whole country. And what we just need to do is to accelerate that program. There's massive potential that is there. With the last IPPs which were given by the Minister of Energy, I think it was in the first half of this year, 3 of them, all 3 were in the Northern Cape, and they were expected to be contributing to the grid by the end Eskom grid by the end of next year. So there is massive work that is taking place, and it's quite clear that we are starting to harvest energy from the sun, and there's serious commitment and focus in doing that. And we are also starting to harvest energy from the wind in the Northern Cape. There's massive green hydrogen investment that is coming in Boho Bay, multi-billion rand project with a capacity of creating more than 6,000 jobs. And there's one in Priska Power Project, which is 9.7 billion rand capex, capital investment in green hydrogen, which will be starting early next year and expect to be commissioned early 2024. So there is massive investment in renewable energy and in alternative energy, and we are quite excited as the province because it also assists us to reduce the high levels of unemployment. Over the past 24 months, which is about 8 quarters, the biggest contributors to unemployment in the Northern Cape, it's mining and renewable energy. So we are seeing massive investments in that front, and we are quite happy with that.
No, that's exciting news for the Northern Cape. Are we ready for 2024, Mr. President?
What is happening in 2024?
You must ask my big boss that question. I don't
What's
know.
happening in 2024?
Are we ready for the national elections?
Oh yes, we are getting ready. We are working towards the 2024 elections, and part of the whole process of Letsema, as we revive our branches, is to make sure that they are ready for battle in 2024. We are ready, and we are very confident that we're going to be successful. We're also confident that the confidence of our people will be restored to the African National Congress as they invest another or give us another mandate to govern the country. So I'm filled with confidence as I go throughout the country, interact with our people. I can see that the love for the ANC is still there, and we just need that revival. We've been through challenges, admittedly, lots of challenges that have dimmed the enthusiasm of many people about the affection towards the ANC. But as we are embarking on all these initiatives, going through the length and the breadth of the country, I'm finding that that heartbeat of affection for the ANC is still there, and we need to reboot it. And many of the things that we are doing, both in government, in tackling corruption, we've tackled state capture, which was a huge dampener of enthusiasm by our people towards the ANC. We've tackled it. State capture has stopped. We are rebuilding our various government institutions. We're tackling corruption. We're now dealing with the implementation of the Zondo Commission, and we are going to implement the Zondo Commission, which unraveled a lot of horrible things that were being done in the past. And we're repositioning our government, and within the various budgetary constraints, we're going to ensure that we do deliver, as the Premier was saying, we do deliver good services to our people so that we can improve their lives. And all the initiatives, we've got lots of irons in the fire. We continue to attract foreign investment. Our infrastructure build projects are going to come on stream now, and we're going to see lots of initiatives. Here in the Northern Cape, we are attracting and continue to attract a lot of investments, as the Premier was saying, and Northern Cape is the home of renewable energy, and it's now going to be the key center of hydrogen energy as well, which we are going to boost, and government is fully behind it, and soon we are going to be exporting hydrogen energy from this province, and jobs will increase, and we're going to be talking about thousands of jobs. So we are like a plane that is taxiing and about to take off. So I'm filled with a great deal of confidence, not only for the Northern Cape and for our country as well. And many people, as we go through challenges like load shedding, their level of confidence is down, their spirits are down. But I want our people to raise their gaze and look above the horizon. Lots of things have been done to prepare for the future that we are going to have. And in a way, we've been through a very dark period. Dark. And it's still dark now as we go through load shedding. We went through COVID. Who had ever expected that we would go through COVID and had to shut down our economy? Nobody ever expected that.
I actually miss the president's meetings, family meetings. I miss that sometimes when I look at my TV and I say, hey, are we not having a family meeting?
Fellow South Africans.
Fellow South Africans now.
Yeah, we went through a very, very difficult time. And I must say, and people sometimes don't recognize this, we are one of those countries that did happen to manage COVID well. Many mistakes were made, we will admit that, but we managed it better than many others. We were able to roll out vaccines, we were able to support our people with the very clever initiatives we came up with the stimulus package, which we still have in place. And when we realized that 10 million, 11 million of people who were not working at the time, were not getting any help from UIF and the other grants, we introduced a new grant. And that has helped many people. It continues to. So much as we look at the challenges and difficulties like floods, like the unrest, like unemployment, like load shedding, I merely ask, let's raise our gaze, because the initiatives that we've put in place are the type of initiatives that are going to lift this country going forward.
Do you know, President, what is hydrogen in Afrikaans?
What is that in Africa?
Hydrogen, waterstof.
Oh, waterstof.
Waterstof, yes. At least you've got something to give from the Northern Cape.
I've learned something, waterstof.
Waterstof. I'm correct?
Yeah.
Ja, es ist stof van die water.
Stof van die water.
Chairperson, let me thank you.
All right, so ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa leading the party's Letsima campaign in Kimberley in the Northern Cape. The campaign is part of accelerating service delivery in the country's provinces, where Kimberley, as we know, has been plagued by a myriad of issues, including sewage spills, potholes, water cuts and dirty water, amongst many other issues. So, as we saw, he is joined by the ANC's provincial chairperson, Zamani Sol, and some of the National Executive Committee members answering some of the questions there. So, that is happening in the Northern Cape province as we speak. Continue to monitor it as well as it unfolds. But as we shift our focus, let's take a look at some of the top political stories that came out of the week. We're joined by political analyst Kani Magubane. A very good afternoon to you, Kani. Thank you for joining us on the SABC.
A very good afternoon to you too, Liesl, and a very good afternoon to your viewers.
It's been an illustrious week on the political front. This obviously as we head into December's elective conference for the ANC. Perhaps let's start off with the ruling party and look at the reception they received this week. ANC Chairman, Chairperson Gwede Mantashe, could not address the workers at the COSATU Congress that took place. And I wonder how you would weigh in on this. Is this a reflection of the relationship with the unions and the ruling party? What's emerging on that front?
I think what's emerging is a tripartite alliance that's really sitting on its very last thread as the interests of the labor unions and the workers and that of political parties move further apart. Because if we look at why the COSATU and SACP went into a tripartite alliance with the ANC was to bring in the Labour Federation, was to bring in those votes from the labor sectors, was to canvass on behalf of the ANC to their different unions and to garner the support of the labor movement in South Africa. However, what we're seeing recently is that within the ANC top brass, there's a move towards internal battle fighting, internal mudslinging and smear campaigns that are happening. That what's happening now is there's been a neglect of nurturing the relationship with its strategic partners in the tripartite alliance, and they are feeling alienated as if their views don't matter, as if their opinions don't matter, because previously parties like the SACP and COSATU as a confederation were always called in at very key and critical points when the ANC was making decisions to also get their views and their support as solidarity partners. But this has not happened as much as it should have in the previous years. So there's definitely a disconnect between the tripartite partners currently.
Well, staying on the ANC, I mean, this week alone, the ANC's Dada Morero was elected as Johannesburg's mayor. This after Mpho Phalatse was voted out due to vote of no confidence. And, I wonder, was this the strategy from the start? Looking at the various legal processes in terms of the application of lawfulness that she could, perhaps pursue from here on to. How would you weigh in on that move for the ANC, perhaps also for the city of Joburg, where at the end of the day it is about service delivery? Has that been happening to effectively as well?
Well, I mean, let's start with the ANC's ascent back into the mayoral position. I think the ANC has always had its eye on that position ever since, they lost it. And we know that they had a string of mayors that also unfortunately passed away, the lives of Jeff Makubu as well as the previous mayor, Mpho Moerane. And I think that when the new DA mayor came in, Mpho Phalatse, it was a very sore point for the ANC, to lose to a coalition decision to put Mpho Phalatse into power. And, there are many moving parts to this particular story, Lizo. And let's look at the ANC strategy in terms of how it went into position that it's in. They used Colleen Makubele very strategically to facilitate that happening. We know that Colleen comes from COPE, and COPE has been a backer of the ANC in this particular process, especially with Colleen being parachuted to the position of Speaker. When Vasco da Gama left as Speaker and he was not supported to come in, that then created a vacuum which Colleen automatically thought she would assume. However, the national leadership of COPE then suspended her, and the regional leadership of COPE then overturned that suspicion and said, you are not suspended, you can continue running for Speaker. And the first thing she did when she occupied that position legally was to table a motion of no confidence as brought by the partners of the coalition party. So I think that strategically it worked out for the ANC because they were not necessarily in the front pushing this agenda. It was a multi-party maneuvering that, of course, was also hitting hard at the DA, who they've seen as not being very good at co-sharing, because that's what coalition government is. And DA wanted Speaker position, they wanted mayor position. However, the multi-party coalition wanted the position of Speaker to go to a minority party to give them greater representation. However, the DA was not willing to share this power. So this mudslinging and this power struggle between the DA and the multi-party coalition actually worked out very well for the ANC to position itself to ascend back to the position of mayor.
Well, speaking of power struggles, I mean, the Nelson Mandela Bay region, we're also looking at the city of Johannesburg and the very, topic of coalitions, whether it is working or not. What do you foresee come 2024 if that seems to be an alternative for the next elections?
I think that the DA is going to fight very hard in the Nelson Mandela Bay because the ANC has grown quite strong in recent years, and we'll just have to look at how they performed in the past local government elections. You know, they performed quite well in that region. And so I think, with Ethel Trollip, being very upset at being removed from power there, the DA has failed to clench onto those opportunities that have arisen, as there's been a change of chairs and positions. And I don't think that the DA will fare as well as they have in previous years in the Nelson Mandela Bay. I think they're going to have to work twice as hard. And I think that John Steenhuisen has got his job cut out for him just in terms of putting through candidates that are going to resonate with the residents of Gqeberha. And we know that it's been a tough one for the DA, and the ANC I don't think will also have it any easier with Oscar Mabuyane being, the provincial chairperson. He has to be very strategic in terms of who's elected into the various critical positions in the Nelson Mandela Bay as to continue keeping that support that they're currently enjoying now, because we don't know what the future will look like in 2024. They may lose the support that they're enjoying now. So it's all about making hay while the sun shines, I guess, because each party goes through different political high seasons and low seasons. And right now, the DA is definitely in its low season in the Gqeberha area.
Well, speaking of seasons, perhaps also keeping the spotlight on both local and national dynamics unfolding politically. Let's move to KZN, but stay with the African National Congress. I mean, we saw also this week they had nominated Zweli Mkhize and Paul Mashatile as president and deputy president, respectively. Perhaps also the proposed top six that they'd put forth. And how is this going to spice up dynamics? Let's put it like that. Come December's race, particularly with, we're looking at how this impacts Nkosazana Dlamini, who was also a front-runner at some point.
Well, we know that historically the ANC in KZN has always had a very important role to play in terms of who ultimately becomes the president, the deputy president, the SG, deputy SG, and treasurer of the party. They are a very powerful region. And we know that the former president, J.G. Zuma, had also thrown his hat into the mix to say that he would be willing to run for national chairperson. But I also believe that he put in a last-minute pitch to the KZN leadership to support Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma's campaign. However, that plea really did fall on deaf ears as the former health minister, Zweli Mkhize, went on to be promoted or to be put forward as the province's preferred candidate for the presidency of the ANC. And in terms of whether that is a good choice or not, Lisa, I think that the ANC has a lot to do in terms of going back to the drawing table and looking at what kind of candidates are we putting forward. In any other democracy, an individual or a former cabinet member with the type of recent history that our former health minister has would not have so readily stood up and wanting to run for national leadership because of a sense of embarrassment, because of a feeling that I had to fall on my sword, and as such, I don't want to stand for such a position, or at least just not yet. But not in South Africa. You can be indicted with the most heinous of crimes, and you will still put yourself forward as a candidate, to lead the country, to lead the people of South Africa. And so that, for me, is still something that's very problematic. However, the ANC in KZN is very sure of our former health minister, and they are putting him forward. He has many other factions to fight against, because there's many other top six formations that have sprung up, especially in the past few months. And so we'll have to see how this particular faction actually performs in Nasrec at the end of the year.
Well, it certainly raises a lot of questions, more questions than answers at this point. But we edge closer, and we'll obviously see how those dynamics will unfold as, the various factions employ their strategies. I think another very big story that came out this week, just very quickly, is obviously the appointment of the new Eskom board. And I just wonder how you'd weigh in on this. I mean, is this what was needed, given the scale of the crisis, to address this crisis? I'm just looking at what Minister Pravin Gordhan spoke about, how they will be held accountable. And what has stopped them before, with the previous board, etc. Lots of questions coming through there.
Absolutely. And the question you ask is very pertinent, Liesl. Is this what we need to solve our energy crisis? Is the problem at a board level, or is the problem at an operational level, in all the different plants, in all the different plants? Do we need new board members, or do we need new engineers? Do we need a new strategy, a new energy plan, or do we need new board members who will ensure that those needs that we need are actually implemented? I'm not sure whether this thing, if I can draw an analogy, it's like changing the coach for a soccer club that keeps on, losing all its games, and you think that the problem is with the coach, only later on to discover it's because your players are unfit, and there's no amount of changing coaches that's going to change that. In the same way with our energy crisis, no amount of changing boards is going to ensure that our plants are in the condition that they need to be in. They need to be functional. They need to operate at the highest level. And we know that it has been widely reported that, plants like Kusile and, other power plants, they're aging, they're getting old. The capacity of electricity that they're able to generate in megawatts is declining. And there had been a move to ensure that we've got new plants that are coming up, that are powering the country, but this process is just not happening quick enough. So unless the new board is going to accelerate that process, I'm not sure how they're actually going to change the current position that we're in, at least in the near future. Perhaps, short term, medium term, long term, there may be positive impacts that the new board make, but certainly in the short term, South Africans need lights on. And the question is, how is the board going to do that? We've got independent power suppliers who've been knocking on government's doors and saying, give us the chunk of this work. Let us work with you to provide South Africans with the energy that they need. But even that process has been slow, Liesl. So unless the board can come in, running, as soon as they land, then I'm not sure in the short term we're really going to experience any difference in our energy crisis at the moment.
And, just to add on to what you've said now, or echoed rather, you speak about short and long term. I mean, the term is only for 3 years. So one has to wonder how much, in fact, can be done, before the appointment of the next board. But Kani, we're going to leave the conversation there. Thank you very much for joining us on the SABC, providing that analysis for the top political stories of this week. Kani Magubane is a political analyst, just again weighing in on some of those top stories making headlines this week. We'll leave the conversation there, take a quick ad break, and be right back on the other side with more. We'll be right back. Welcome back. The Week in Review with myself, Liesl Wilson, continues. Now, the post office workers on shock after receiving hefty unpaid medical aid bills without any warning or explanation. It's alleged that the SAPO failed to pay its medical aid scheme, Medipos, for months now. Now, this is the latest developments in the ongoing financial woes at the post office. The embattled postal service is seeking a 1.6 billion rand cash injection from the National Treasury.
A worker who has been employed at SAPO for over a decade says they are in the dark about the high medical aid bills, and many fear that they may be without medical cover soon.
We're not certain about our future within post office. Deductions are made through our salaries, but the company is not paying the Medipos. We're thinking because we see on a daily need that we even run out of paper, a normal typing that we in need of. we have to get it out of our pocket.
The high medical aid bills comes as employees have received no increase in 2 years. While the post office was reluctant to respond to queries, unions are spitting fire.
Also, we want an employer to update all the pension funds of employees as per the court ruling to ensure that employees are not going to be disadvantaged by continuous dragging its feet of employer for not paying the pension funds accordingly. We want also to demand to employer to ensure that there is a reinstatement of medical aid in terms of payment, all the medical aid, to ensure that workers are not going to be disadvantaged by looming suspensions of medical aid that will be in 1st of October going forward.
For salaries towards the service providers such as medical aid, pension fund and various other things, which in fact those monies that were deducted did not go to the intended service providers. That's an indication that the post office is in woes in terms of finances, and therefore it needs some serious intervention coming from the state, and we call for a bailout. But however, there should be accountability.
SAPO is riddled with many challenges. Many post offices are not being maintained, compromising the quality of services rendered to the public. Senior citizens heavily depend on these services.
This is going to be a really bad thing for us, because of, especially for post office. Like now, I'm coming from post office, they're closing the post office. For those things, where I'm going to get them, and especially as pensioners, we rely on post office, most of us, because of when we go, it's a day of pensioners day. We got our money there.
In Eastris, residents say they are extremely inconvenienced by the closure of the local post office, and many others are also shutting their doors amid serious financial constraints. Unions say the unpaid medical aid bills are just evidence of how grave the situation is at SAPO.
A distressed post office worker told us of how he received a medical aid bill of 72,000 rand, but his pay slip reflects that the money was, however, deducted from his salary but not paid to his medical aid. Now, these high medical aid bills, alongside many post offices that are being shut down nationally, like the one right here next to me, this has increased anxiety levels among the post office workers, who are now fearing that they might lose their jobs. Patricia Fasage, SABC News in Pretoria.
As daily power cuts fast become a norm, spare thought for the infirm and seriously ill patients in hospitals across the country. Although many facilities do have generators, they were not meant to be switched on and off about 5 to 6 times per day. Load shedding has increased the need for diesel, and the cost also compounds the situation even further. Now, the Hospital Association wants an exemption for all hospitals, as this affects the elderly. It also affects critical surgery and is a risk to patients at large. Yesterday, Health Minister Dr. Joe Butler said that engagements are currently underway with Eskom to facilitate a plan to exempt all healthcare facilities across the country from load shedding.
Well, the Eskom prescription of load shedding is not good medicine for hospitals like these. So public and private hospitals are in desperate need of a shot in the arm. At the Netcare Group alone, there were 3,157 power outages since October last year. When SABC News arrived here at the Mill Park Hospital, 11 acute facilities under the group countrywide had been load shed.
You must also remember that if you're well prepared in case of an incident. Doesn't mean an incident doesn't happen. We have had hospitals where power outages have happened and the generators have failed to start. The reason for that is they're only pieces of equipment that are meant to be used once, twice, 3 times in a lifetime. But here we're using them 9, 10 times a day, 8, 9 times a day, on, off, on, off. It's a piece of equipment. It's not designed to function in the way that they're functioning at the moment. Ours, thank goodness, are functioning fairly well and really well at the moment. We've got a good technical team that looks after our hospitals. We've got really dedicated staff. But there is the possibility of a generator not starting. And that then means that the power to the hospital has to be solved immediately. whether that be that another generator will start or whether it be that our staff start it manually. But what we have seen is we've also seen a problem with infrastructure that supports the hospital. So if a transformer goes on and off and on and off and on and off, we saw in Pretoria a few months ago where the transformer exploded after a power outage, which then meant we were on load shedding or on power outage for 10 days. Now we sustained that hospital. There wasn't a single patient that was at risk. But the issue is the risk is to us, and as a company, we are responsible for people's lives. And we're responsible for equipment, we're responsible for infrastructure, and that makes it difficult.
SABC News was obviously unable to speak to any patients due to privacy regulations, but the group says there's been a huge impact on operations, making patient care more difficult. Well, this graphic shows that in comparison to all other incidents that may occur, power outages are the biggest headache. A snapshot of views from the streets bear this out. South Africans are tired, angry and frustrated.
The biggest thing is the fact that we keep on paying for more electricity. The tariffs keep on going up for a service that we don't have. So that's one of the biggest issues that I have.
Because normally, even when we go to work, we need to wake up early in the morning to accommodate the robots because the traffic is bad. We drive long hours.
Well, the Hospital Association of South Africa says while it lauds the minister's intervention, the number of hospitals which will be exempt is still too small to make a significant difference.
We're talking around 10% of hospital numbers. We have a long way to go and a complex issue, and we do appreciate the Minister and the Department's efforts in this regard. Our concerns are twofold. There's an operational aspect and there's a patient care aspect. You know, the one is affecting the other, and it really applies to all hospitals everywhere, in particular acute hospitals. So in the operations, for instance, there's a degradation of machinery. Medical and surgical equipment is really not built to be switched on and off constantly several times a day. And some of this machinery is complicated, they have to be protected. So that is one problem. The other problem, of course, is that generators are not meant to be switched on and off at the frequency that they are now. And then there's also the cost of operations. Diesel prices have gone up exponentially, as we all know. Then there are also other problems like supply, as we've seen in the case of Eskom. So the cost of operations is becoming a bit of an issue. Budgets have to be balanced to make up for unbudgeted expenditure for diesel, just to keep the generators going. And then, of course, that whole operational complexity is having an impact on the quality of care.
While South Africa is facing a crisis on several fronts, frequent power supply interruptions has had a cascading effect on the economy, business and healthcare. Criselda Lewis, SABC News in Johannesburg.
Our former UN Women head, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, says that she was worried about the country's state of democracy. Dr. Mlambo-Ngcuka has been inaugurated as the new Chancellor of the University of Johannesburg and takes over from Professor Njabulo Ndebele, who concludes a second 5-year term as Chancellor at the end of this month.
Concerned about the rising levels of poverty and unemployment and their impact on democracy, Mlambo-Ngcuka urged South Africans to defend the country's democracy.
We are at risk of allowing our hard-won freedom to go to waste. I hope not under your watch. Falling into a slippery slope and sleepwalking ourselves into what could become a failed state is not an option. We have too many people in this country with the capacity to take us forward.
She says the rising levels of corruption are an indication of a dire need for ethical leadership, and that this will stave off the risks of becoming a failed state.
What's really important, though, is for us to recognize that we have a problem in areas where we have a problem, such as unemployment, poverty and inequality, load shedding and all of these things. and really start to do something about it. And it's really encouraging that government is now looking at a situation where they have to bring other stakeholders, civil society, unions, business, to work together to solve these problems, because government alone cannot solve all of these problems that we face as a country.
The outgoing Chancellor reminded South Africans of the importance of a smooth political transition of power that is similar to the universities.
Looking to the elections of 2024, we are wondering what it is that will bring us together, what it is that will constitute us into a society that remembers its past, that is in charge of its present, and is thinking ahead about its future.
Many have congratulated the former Deputy President and the former Under-Secretary Executive Director of UN Women.
I don't think she's completely lost politically. I think that a lot of people will be able to consult her and hear what her views are on the political situation in the country. But it is certainly a gain for the University of Johannesburg.
Mlambo Ngcuka will assume the responsibilities of a Chancellor come the 1st of October. Balentle Mthethwa, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Right, welcome back. The Weekend Review continues. 15-year-old Zenzizole Vena in Gqeberha has been laid to rest. The story surrounding her death has gripped the nation. She was allegedly gang raped and then dropped off on the streets of Motherwell. Our SABC News reporter Lerato Fikisi was there.
Well, a very good morning on what is a very sad and somber atmosphere here in Motherwell Township, where Zenzizole Vena is being laid to rest. You remember that last week her story really broke out in the media, where we were informed that Zenzizole was gang raped by 4 men who we are aware now are under the age of 18. After that, she was found by a lady who is from the family walking the street crying. This young lady, this lady then took her to the local clinic, where she says when they arrived at the local clinic, they were told that by a nurse at the clinic that they do not facilitate people that have been raped, but instead she must go to a police station. And after that, a few minutes after arriving at the police station, Zenzizole later died and was declared dead on the scene. But joining me this morning is the uncle of Zenzizole, Mziyanda Ven. Tell us more exactly how the family is coping, if at all, with what has happened to the family. Malume sapha namhlanje kungcwaba kaZenzizole usapho luqhuba njani malume?
Umsebenzi kaZenzizole uhambe kakuhle gqithi mama. Kanti ongakuba uye saprepare ngendlela eright. Sasupportwa indawo esupportwe kuzo. So waqhubeka umsebenzi wakhe ngoba ubona ngokugcwala abantu apha no.
Yena besithela namhlanje malume usithi umama izolo ebengathi ungcono kodwa namhlanje engathi kunzimana kakhulu kuye.
Izolo kusiye sambona ngathi une week samswala nkini kagqirha. Badona ugqirha ke kuze ukwazi ukuya uyibona umntana wakhe ke ngokuyizolo.
Malume ngaba pha eclinic mosive bawuzenzolo wafika pha wathi inesi phaka kwazomnceda ngenxeba abadishima nabarechiwe waso epolice station. Ingaba amasebe ezempilo azile kunanicacisela ukuba kwenzeka ntoni kula clinic ukuncedisa ukufana out bakutheni la nesi wathi makangayi pha kula clinic.
Xa inyanisiswe mu pha clinic akhona isi-safe man ebambekayo kwangoku kuba kuthiwa kusaphandwa and then saphila sive thina ixesha lihamba kuhambe kanjani into yakhe. Even police station kunjalo kusaqhubeka nophando ke ngokuzithi ngokuqhela ke silinde results ngoku.
Wena malume obviously umalume wakhe umkhulisile wamazwa mbona ekhula zinto mhlawumbe izinto zozikhumbula kakhulu ngayo Zenzizole.
Zenzizole zamkhumbula ngento ezininzi kufa like umzekelo ubungumntana onamaphupha gqithi emanesi exelela nojoke kakhulu but yabethanda into nje yathi ba one day xa uyaphumelela esikoleni wapona umsebenzi right yaza alungisa ikhaya lakhe first of all ndina abe kanti uyena uZenzizole ke ngoku.
And then malume into ebuhlungu kakhulu bona kakhulu besifika apha kakhulu bunyembezana into ebuhlungu into enzekileyo kuwe yinto malume.
Into ezabuhlungu because uZenzizole be friend kum and kwalume kuye ngutata because Mr. Nizole everything they funa ebekwazi ukucela kum and friendly kuye sikakhulu because bentana wona Nizole and then entana uzenizole nje into ezininzi bethanda ukushare nami like into zesikole xa iproject becela mina so sinethana iproject yakhe that's why ubale bafike ndinyembezana because of samkhumbula into ezininzi gqitha Nizole because we friend yami sikakhulu zini.
And then malume wena ezusapho nifuna ubona kwenzeka ntoni ngale case kaZenizole?
Thina sifuna ibonele case azini iqhubeka phambili and iphumelele and then sixo nathi xa iya kwafumana sinokwala abafana ivelile inyani kubo and then ke singaxola ke ndenge ngesifuna ikhe sinizusapho thina kavena ke.
Well, that was the uncle of the late Zenizole Vena, Mzianda Vena, just speaking about the fond memories that he has about her, saying that she was also not just a niece to him, but was also a friend, someone that he could confide in, someone that she would often go to advice for, saying that she had big dreams for herself. She used to say that she's going to one day graduate and build a beautiful house for her parents and also raise the surname of that home to a high standard. So he says he's very much heartbroken that her life was cut short so tragically, also saying that the only way to get closure from this experience to ensure that the family gets justice. They want those that gang raped Zenizole to be brought to book and to be put in prison. Also saying that in terms of the clinic where she was allegedly snubbed before passing at the police station, they have heard from the health departments that they are currently investigating, but to date no arrests have been made.
In other news, South African comedian Trevor Noah has announced plans to leave The Daily Show. 7 years ago, he replaced Jon Stewart as host, and Noah announced on air that he plans to leave the show at a time yet to be revealed.
In a studio monologue, the 38-year-old Trevor Noah shocked his audience with the news that after 7 years in the hot seat, he would be departing The Daily Show, adding that while he had considered himself a crazy choice to replace Stewart, describing himself as a random African, he felt it was time to go.
I just found myself filled with gratitude for the journey. It's been absolutely amazing. It's something that I never expected, and I found myself thinking throughout the time, everything we've gone through, the Trump presidency, the pandemic, just the journey of, the more pandemic. And I realized that after the 7 years, my time is up.
The most recent Grammys host and White House Correspondents' guest performer called the experience one of his greatest challenges and greatest joys, saying he'd loved hosting the show and trying to make people laugh, acknowledging even the doubters when he first took over the anchor's chair. Comedy Central did not immediately name his replacement, but a spokesperson said the network had been working with Noah for a long time to figure out how he can maintain his demanding schedule, adding that at this stage there was no timetable for his departure, but that they were exploring next steps. The stand-up comedian also recently announced 2023 tour dates for South Africa. Shervin Brycepease, SABC News, New York.
Well, that's where we're going to leave it for you today. Thank you very much for tuning in. Of course, tomorrow we take a look at what we can expect on the week ahead. But from myself, Liesl Wilson and the team, until then, do stay safe. It's goodbye for now.